This is the Haulin Assets podcast, where we'll show you how to go from employee truck driver to savvy business owner. And we'll do it together because we're starting our own trucking company, Haulin Assets, so you'll get a front row seat through the whole process. Together with some experts in the field, we'll teach you how to set up a business, buy a truck, get your DOT and MC numbers, get insurance, and a lot more. Thanks for joining us. Welcome, everybody, to the Haulin Assets podcast. I am Craig. Welcome back, Chris.
Good to be here.
In studio.
In studio again. This is like 3 or 4 weeks in a row, partly because the last little bit we've been recording like multiple episodes at once, right?
That's the trick. We're really peeling back the curtain for people here.
We are. Yeah.
No.
Get into the guts.
We're live right now. We're live, coming straight into your cab as we speak. No, okay, today is episode 14. What is IRP, or Apportioned Registration? I don't know what I just said, but I'm hoping by the end of the episode I will.
And if you don't, then you've got some issues that you need to work through.
Okay, so we are going to get to that topic in just a moment, but I want to do what we normally do in these and talk about, first of all, what's going on with you on the road, and also talk about contest winners and that sort of thing. So maybe we start with the contest winners.
Sounds
what's going
good.
On there?
Yeah, we had another contest winner this last week. It was Albert Brown. Submitted a good fall pick of some scenery he's traveled through in the near recent past, and congratulations, got a $50 Visa card.
Very nice, and I assume we're doing another one.
We are.
What's going on with this one?
So the next one, to kind of keep along with the theme of food that you gave me such a hard time about last week, instead of your favorite restaurant or place to eat, this time it's going to be your favorite snack on the road. And if you can, I would like to see what your favorite guilty pleasure is, and then also what your favorite health food snack is.
Like actual reasonable snack.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because sometimes you just got to eat something that tastes really good, and sometimes you probably need to eat a healthy snack. So one of both would be best. You don't have to do both to enter in the contest, but do me a favor and give me some good ideas.
You know, my guilty pleasure one?
What's that?
When I'm on the road, caramel apples.
Caramel apples. Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow. Where do you get those on the road?
No, just make them.
You bring your own?
And then take them.
Cool. Yeah. M&Ms are kind of my peanut M&Ms.
Yeah. Well,
I don't like the plain ones. The plain ones are gross, but plain
ones are fine. Peanut butter is good, but peanut is best. I'm with you
there.
There
We go.
Hey,
okay.
we agree on something.
That doesn't happen very often.
Okay. Well, take it where we can find it. So in order to get entered for this, you're saying favorite snack, submit your favorite snack. They can do that on the Facebook page. Just check out Haulin Assets. Any other ways to enter, or is that where we want them going?
Just going, to the Haulin Assets Facebook page.
Okay, very good. And if you throw your name into that hat and we draw it out, you'll get that $50 Visa gift card. Not a bad little prize for just snapping a photo and sharing it on the page.
And this time you don't even have to snap a photo. You just have to type a few words.
Oh, there you go.
Spelling. Yeah, spelling's important.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is that a disqualifier?
I don't know. I'll have to think about that.
M&M?
No, it can't be a disqualifier because I'm such a horrible speller.
That's a good point.
I sympathize with those who can't spell.
So, Chris, what's been happening on the road?
A lot's been happening. It's been a good little month. But you know what the most frustrating thing for me on the road is?
I mean, being on the road. I mean, you're away from home a lot more than you used to be, I assume.
I am, and that's hard, but that's kind of, going into this, that's kind of part of the territory, is you're going to be away from home. But the thing that is the most frustrating, like most of trucking is something that you expect, something that, happens normal, but just dealing with shippers and receivers is, for me, the biggest pain in the butt. I can handle the traffic, I can handle the crazy hours and some of that weird stuff like that. But just not knowing what to expect when you arrive at a receiver or shipper is just a royal pain in the butt.
I can imagine. I mean, I would have assumed that wouldn't be the most pleasant, but I mean, that's a huge part of the job, isn't it?
It's a huge part of the job, yeah.
That's unfortunate that you're bringing this up.
Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the butt because you arrive at a shipper and you've got a scheduled appointment when you're supposed to be there. I've never missed my appointment, and what do you think a reasonable time for loading or unloading a trailer should be?
I'm sure it depends on the cargo.
It is. And most, 90% of the time, the cargo's loaded onto pallets, and you've probably got something like anywhere from typically 18 to maybe 22, 24 pallets on your trailer. So not like a crazy number of pallets, and most of these shippers unload them with a forklift. So
18 to 24 pallets, forklift, less than an hour.
Yeah, you'd think 2 hours. I think anytime under 2 hours is typically a pretty good stop at a shipper or receiver. But man, sometimes they just take forever, and you just never know what you're gonna get. So take, for example, a load that I was just on. It was actually for a manufacturer, and I was picking up at one of their plants in Missouri and delivering a load. And this one had, I think, it wasn't even that many. It was like 13 or 14 pallets. It was a really low number. From their plant in Missouri to a plant in Salt Lake City. And I get to the plant in Missouri, and I am literally the guard that helped me out was super helpful, witty. He was kind of funny like you, lots of little jokes.
Oh, so not very funny.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
And I get in there, and I'm literally out in less than an hour, which is, anytime that happens is great. And so I'm thinking, well, gosh, I'm delivering to the same manufacturer in Salt Lake. You'd think, maybe it'd be about the same thing.
Not so much.
Not so much. I get to the place in Salt Lake, and the security guard there is like this young kid that was like, had no idea what was going on. A royal pain in the butt. Couldn't get a straight answer out of him. Tells me to go to he was kind of, I guess, more on the shipping side of things, and I was obviously delivering. So he's like, you got to go to the other side of the building, the receiver, just park out there and wait, and somebody will come tell you what to do. So I park out there. I've been there for an hour by this time. Nobody's come. There's a door that's locked but has a window in it by the receiving area. I go look in that window, and finally, after like 15 or 20 minutes of staring at that window, somebody walks by, and I can kind of flag them down. Well, to make a long story short, I was there for 2 hours before I even got a straight answer from anybody about what was going on. And then like another half an hour to an hour after that, they finally said, you know what? At this point, it's like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I've been there for probably pretty close to 3 hours.
Just baking in the sun.
Baking in the sun, yep. And he finally said, you know what, come back at 7:30, we'll unload you then.
Man. So at what point do you say, look, I know I'm not unionized, but give me the freaking keys. I'll drive the forklift myself.
There's been a lot of times I would have loved to. I'd totally unload the trailer myself if I could just get the stuff off. And I bet you most guys are that way. But I mean, it's kind of frustrating because you go to a place, you expect to be in and out, reasonable 2 hours, not out of the question to have it take 4 hours by the time everything's said and done. And so you're typically, booking your loads, your next follow-on load with that in mind, that, you're going to get unloaded and you can go get your next load. Well, luckily this time I was coming to Salt Lake and taking a few days off, so I didn't have another load to go to. But,
this reminds me of like missing a flight at an airport and you miss your connection, or something where the airline is late and so you miss a connection, and it's not your fault, but it throws off everything.
It throws off everything. Yeah. If you get to a receiver and it takes them 6 hours plus to unload, it throws off your next load, makes the next guys mad at you, and it's not your fault. It's not anything you can do about it.
Yeah. So,
but you're expected to be there on time every time.
Well, sure. I mean, You're a professional, Chris.
I'm a professional driver. I guess they don't get the distinction of professional forklift operator.
Well, maybe we should stop heaping abuse on the poor forklift guys and jump into today's topic. You ready?
That's probably a good idea.
Okay, Chris, I got a question for you. What the heck is an IRP?
That's a good question. We actually have some guests in the studio today to help us out with that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, that's who's on my couch. I didn't even look to my left here. Okay, well, why don't you introduce our guest for today, Chris?
Okay, so today we've got Ariel. Ariel is our office manager at Motor Carrier HQ and Progressive Reporting, and she has been with us, just celebrated her 8-year anniversary.
Ooh, did she get a 10-year sabbatical or anything?
At 8 years, there's not a 10-year sabbatical.
No, I'm talking about 2 more years.
2 more years and a sabbatical?
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but we're not at college. So anyway, she is kind of our resident expert at a lot of things, but definitely our biggest expert at IRP and registrations, which is what we're talking about today. So that's why we're bringing her into the picture.
Very nice. Okay, well, why don't we get started with that? Where do you want to start on this topic, Chris?
So IRP is really just the process of getting your license plate for your truck. It's IRP stands for International Registration Plan. A lot of people also...
I remember this.
Yes, we've talked a little bit about it. It's also typically referred to as Apportioned Plates. There's a lot of different names for it, but those are really the two most common.
And so now I just went through this process for my personal vehicle. And is the process similar at all? Are there huge differences? Am I going to be able to navigate through it just based on that personal experience?
Well, knowing you know you're not going to be able to navigate through it. Man. And the similarity between the two is you end up with a license plate that you bolt onto your vehicle. That's about where the similarities end. It's
okay.
It's actually quite a bit more complicated and more involved for commercial vehicles. With commercial vehicles, you're actually paying registration fees in every state.
So is this a process that you should only have to go through once if you're doing this apportioned plate that's good in whatever state you're operating in?
You have to do it once to kind of get the account set up and everything really going, and then every year, similar to what you have to do with your personal car, you have to reapply and renew the registration. And the renewal process isn't as complicated as getting started, but it's the renewal process for a commercial vehicle is definitely more complicated than it is for your car.
Right.
So everything's just more complicated.
And this is something, I feel like we've dipped our toes a little bit into what's happening as you're out on the road for the first little while. But this sounds like something that's going to have to happen kind of in the pre-rolling days, right?
Yeah, you've got to
get out there.
Yep, you've got to get your truck registered. And there's some things you can do, like you can get a temporary registration. That all has to happen before you get on the road. If you start driving down the road without any kind of registration on your truck, you're going to have issues the first time you go through a port.
Well, for sure.
Yeah. All right, so let's bring Ariel back into the fray here and start asking some questions about this whole process. So I know, like, when you go to register a car, Ariel, you typically have to go to your DMV office at your state, and obviously that's different for IRP. So where does somebody need to start out?
Right. So you want to find out what department in your state handles IRP registrations. Most of the time, it's going to be your motor carrier division. And that's where you'll start.
Okay, good. And we'll actually have on the website a link of where you can go to. Actually, it's actually on the IRP is an organization, a quasi-government organization that has a website. And so we'll provide a link to the website where you can go and you can actually search by your state, and they'll give that contact information for where they need to go to get that all set up.
So the next question on my mind is, does everybody have to go through this apportion plate process? Are there any other options, or is this kind of what you have to do?
Carriers who are crossing state lines and are running heavier than 26,000 pounds will definitely want to get apportion plates. Some states will allow you to apportion if you're running at 10,000 pounds or more. It's a good idea to apportion if you're running across state lines consistently.
I assume that would be most truckers, right? Most of them are going across state lines. How many, intrastate truckers are there? Is that common, or is this most people who are going to be dealing with this issue?
Your intrastate carriers are, more like your construction companies, things of that nature. So, a lot of times they will have to cross state lines, but it might only be once or twice in a year. And in that situation, it may not be the best option to apportion because you can get a trip permit when you have to go into another state. And so that might be the most cost-effective thing to do if, that's what your operations entail, just, mostly staying intrastate. Right. But all other carriers that are running consistently interstate, you definitely want to apportion.
So what is the process for opening an IRP account? What do we have to do to get this ball rolling? I mean, we talked about you got to find the right agency.
So yeah, first and foremost, you've got to find the place within your state that does it, and we'll provide the link in the show notes of where you go to do that.
And then what do you have to bring? I mean, when I'm going to get my my license plate to bolt onto the back of my car, all I got to do is bring proof of residence, proof of my government issued ID or
Hey,
whatever.
you're kind of walking down the right path. Let's let Ariel do that. So, first and foremost, Ariel, what's kind of that process? What's the first thing you're going to have to do or provide to them?
So the first thing that you want to make sure of is that your authority is active. You cannot open up an IRP account without an active authority or MC number. So once that's gone active, then what you'll want to take with you is 4 proofs of residency or established place of business. Those 4 items will include your articles of organization, your EIN letter from the IRS, and then also utility bills, a mortgage statement, a bank statement, things of that nature. It has to be mail. It can't be junk mail, I guess, per se. So it's something that's going to be mailed to you and is a legitimate piece of mail that can't just be made up, the address.
So you've mentioned a few of those that are good ones, but then also, we're providing this contact information of where they can call within their state to get this done. And say they've only got 3 of those items that you just whittled off, they can probably ask them, hey, what else can I use? Or I've got an insurance bill, will that be acceptable? And they can let them know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen things like residential lease agreements, even an MCS 150. I've seen insurance certificates, cell phone bills. So there are other options.
Okay, yeah, so we can call and find out what our options are before we trek on down to the agency to present that stuff, right?
All right, so step 1, you're going to have to show them proof of residency. What's the next thing that they've got to do?
So the next step is to fill out the application. That application entails just your basic company information, name, address, phone number, the owner of the companies or the members, and what their titles are, president, member, etc. And then also your vehicle information. So you want to make sure that you have your VIN number, unit number, purchase date, purchase price. And some states will allow you to get a temporary registration. So that's one thing that you want to ask if you don't have the title to the vehicle yet.
So in most of these situations, as you're filling out these forms, I know in Utah that we are super familiar with, there's 3 different forms you have to fill out. And in most states, do you actually have to go to the office to get those forms, or can you download them on the internet?
You should be able to download them on the internet, and you can probably either fax or email those applications to the department that handles IRP. You'll just want to give them a call and find out if you have to be there in person or not.
So once they've filled out all those forms and done that, what's kind of the next step?
So once you've filled out the forms, they may ask you for additional information or documents. They may ask you for an emission certificate or possibly a safety inspection or your heavy vehicle use tax, which is also called or referred to as the 2290.
So we've talked about the required documents for the proof of residency. They fill out the application forms, and there's some additional information that could be specific to their truck. I think to me, at this point, it really just kind of boils down to, make sure you've got all those documentation. So when you first contact that office, make sure you know exactly what it is that you've got to provide so you can have it there and either mail it to them or have it all ready to go once you show up. So you're not going to the office, having to go back home, grab something else, going to the office, coming back home, grab something else. That could be a pain, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It can be very stressful to show up to motor carriers and not have everything that's required and get turned away. So you'll definitely want to, go prepared because it can be a lengthy process. Also, the other thing that you're going to want to keep in mind is what weight you're going to register your vehicle at. So if you're a hot shot, you're going to want to know beforehand what your gross vehicle weight rating is, and for your truck and your trailer, and then think about, okay, what's the maximum weight I'm going to operate at, so that you can make sure that you can get those weights correct on your cab card the first time. If you're a semi tractor trailer, most of the time you're going to be 80,000 pounds. That's pretty easy. But, with hot shots, going back to that, there can be, a price difference between 38,000 pounds and 40,000 pounds. And so if you're not going to be running that heavier weight, you definitely don't want to go too heavy, because you're going to be paying registration fees for something that you don't need.
Speaking of fees, that was going to be what I was going to bring up, because we've talked a lot in previous podcasts, Chris, about just how expensive some of these startup costs are, and how the nickels and dimes keep adding up. And that was going to be my question: is how much does this cost? I mean, I just registered my little Mazda, and it cost me freaking $200 here in the state of Utah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not cheap. And so, to kind of go with that, this is perfect timing, because I actually today just started working on the renewal for my truck, because I initially, and we'll probably talk a little bit about this later in this episode, I initially only registered my truck for the first 6 months, so I didn't have to come up with quite as big of a down payment. Or, it was at the time that you're forking out all this money for startup costs, and so I wanted to lower those startup costs as much as I could, and so I actually only registered for 6 months. So my renewal, I just got the renewal paperwork. My registration is good till the end of September, but I started the process to get it renewed and kind of get an idea for how much it's going to cost me. It was just shy of $1,700 for 1 year.
For a year?
For 1 year.
$1,700 for a year. Oh.
Yeah,
sorry, I'm sorry. My heart is it's struggling to keep up with this information.
Takes money to make money.
Apparently.
Yeah.
If only I had money.
All right, so like almost $1,700 for 1 year's worth of registration. So the last thing you want to do is, if you're a hotshot guy and your gross vehicle weight rating's only 38,000 pounds, you're not going to say, well, I'll just be a little bit extra careful and I'll bump it up to 45,000 pounds. You're just going to be paying extra fees for something that you can't even use. And you're still, let's say you are over that weight, and your truck's only registered or is only rated to that, your truck and trailer, you're still going to get a ticket. So there's no point in registering at a weight that's higher than what you can actually roll out. You're just going to pay more money in fees.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, here's my dumb question. You ready?
Yep.
What's a hot shot?
That is a good question. A hot shot is somebody that's driving around with his pickup truck and maybe like a 40-foot gooseneck trailer that's hauling smaller loads using a pickup truck. They're super common in the oil field. I think we get a ton out of Texas, right? A ton of hot shots run out of the Texas area, and you just haul in some of that smaller freight.
Very nice. Okay.
A lot of auto haulers.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I've seen some of that rolling around.
Even
the education of Craig continues.
Yeah, guys hauling RVs, fifth wheel trailers from the manufacturer to where they sell them, or for individuals, hauling all that kind of stuff around, all hot shots.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So
let's go back to Ariel's point with the weights. Was there something else that you want to say with that, Ariel?
Yeah. So another thing worth mentioning is, if you will be running in excess of 80,000 pounds, most states will cap you out at 80,000 pounds on your cab card, and then they require you to obtain an overweight permit for the excess weight. But then there are some states that instead will require you to list the maximum weight on your cab card, but they may not make you get an overweight permit. So that's something to ask about when you're registering your truck.
And I think that's probably more common in some of these western states, right? Like Utah, Wyoming. If I remember, Idaho will let you register.
Correct, yeah.
One of them's up to like 128,000 pounds, right?
Yeah, Idaho's 129,000.
Yeah, that's a lot of weight.
Well, I mean, I feel like I could actually ride in that truck.
You might be able to. You're not that big. All right, so I kind of already spilled the beans a little bit and jumped ahead talking about how I saved myself only paying 6 months worth of registration fees up front. And that's a really good way to limit those costs. So, for example, if you're going to start running in January, a lot of states will let you say, hey, I just want my renewal period where my registration is going to renew every year to renew in at the end of June. That way you're only paying for 6 months worth of registration right up front, so you can limit your startup costs. And then by the time that renewal comes along, you will have been running for several months, and hopefully have a little bit of money saved up for the renewal, and you can pay for the full year's worth of fees at that point.
Right, that makes sense to me.
that's something that you'll want to look into beforehand, because not all states will allow you to choose your renewal period. So here in Utah, where we live, Utah will allow you to choose your renewal period, and but not all states will allow you to do that, though. So, just find that out beforehand so that you know kind of what the costs are going to be and what to expect before you walk in there.
Okay, good point. Another thing I kind of want to mention here real quick. So we've talked a lot about IRP, but kind of going along with IRP is IFTA. Do you remember what that stands for, Craig?
International Federation of Truck.
You got the first one right. International Fuel Tax Agreement.
No, okay.
So
I was going Star Trek.
They kind of go hand in hand, don't they, Ariel?
They do. Yeah, they're two totally different things, but they go hand in hand. So some states will allow you to set up your IFTA account at the same time you're setting up your IRP account. So that's another thing to look into. Just ask them. And if you're lucky enough to live in one of those states that IFTA and IRP fall under the same department, that's great. So usually all it takes is just checking a box on the application, and they'll get your IFTA license and your decals, and you can walk out of there and be done with it. But most states, I think, now have moved IFTA over to their taxation department. So once you get your IRP set up, ask the person that's helping you, okay, who helps me with IFTA and where do I go? And they should be able to point you in the right direction. Okay, good. Well, that's kind of all I can think of right now. Do you have any kind of final parting thoughts, Ariel, that you want to give? I do. So one thing that you might want to look into is if your state offers a permanent trailer plate. I think most states have them. A lot of times, though, they will charge you property tax every year, so it's not really worth it. But there are a few states out there that we know of, like Maine, Idaho, and Oklahoma. There may be some others. Those are just the ones I can think of off the top of my head. But they offer a permanent plate. You don't have to be based out of that state. It's a one-time fee. And I was really hoping that was going to rhyme too. Sorry, I threw you off. Keep going. All right. So, but yeah, look into it, because if you can get one of those permanent plates, it will save you money in the long term, and people really, they really like it. So you buy that trailer and you get it registered with that plate year one, and you still own that trailer 10 years down the road. You're not having to re-register it every year. It's correct, just registered. Yep. It's just registered. Yeah. One and done. That's nice. Yeah. Do you have to renew that registration? No. Oh, it's done. Wow. Yeah. Okay. I think Maine, you can do like 5 years, but Idaho and Oklahoma, I'm pretty sure theirs are permanent. So. Is it pricey? Idaho charges $106.75, so it's not too bad. Yeah, that's actually cheaper than what a lot of people pay annually for registration fees. Go Idaho. Yeah. That's on number one state in the union. I don't even live there. I love Idaho. I guess my last thoughts would be, make sure that you're keeping or be prepared to keep accurate distance records, keep track of your mileage, and make sure that when you report your IFTA that you're reporting your mileage accurately, because your renewal fees for your registration in the following years are going to be based off of your mileage. Chris, what about you? Any other final thoughts from you before we call this one good? No, I think Ariel probably about hit the nail on the head. Okay, well, very good. So if I understand correctly, and that's really the true test of all of you that come across the show, is can you educate me, an idiot, in the ways of the trucker? So let me see if I understand. There are some steps we're going to have to follow when we want to get these plates, to get our apportioned plates. If we're going that route, we need to have the right forms, and we talked about that already. You can find out with your state agency or whoever you're working with what those forms are going to be. We're talking about proof of residency, that sort of thing. There's going to be a lot of other forms you'll have to fill out, but that's kind of a big part of that. Any additional documentation? We talked about EIN documentation, business documentation, that sort of thing. And then lastly, have the fee ready to pay. Yeah, you got to pay that fee. That's the not so fun part of every not really that any of it's that in fun, this process. Yeah, you got to. Last thing, you got to pay that fee, or they don't give you the plates. Yeah, after all the work, they'll make you do all the work first. Yeah, it's probably that you look at that license plate. It's probably about
by weight is expensive as gold. Maybe not quite, but close.
All right. Well, very good. So, Chris, I think we'll wrap this up. And Ariel, thank you so much for walking us through this. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And once again, a reminder to everybody that you can go to the Haulin Assets Facebook page and check out the giveaway that we're doing there. This week it is snack foods, your favorite snack foods on the road.
I need more. I need more ideas.
Again, Chris wins every contest. So go check that out, the Haulin Assets Facebook page, and enter to win that $50 gift card. And well, let's see what else. Go to haulinassetsllc.com to check out the show notes. You can see full show notes there for this and past episodes if you need to brush up on any part of what we've talked about today or in the past. Chris, what's coming up next time?
Next time, we are talking about some of the compliance things that need to happen before you hit the road.
Ooh, compliance I can do. I used to work in a bank, so that's a word I am well familiar with.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
Well, is it good that the word compliance got me all excited? I'm not so sure.
No.
All right, well, I will see you then. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next time.
See you, Craig.